Shalom. And I first and foremost, of course, would like to show my continued appreciation for each and every one that has continued their activity on the lessons and questions and on the frequency, and also in your works and your missions to help enlighten our people back into right knowledge. As you've noticed, I have been absent for a decent period of time from the frequency and only posting and participating here and there, dealing with some things. But in that absence, as I've told many of you, it doesn't mean that I've been silent. I have been in full-fledged study and hard at work at trying to get some things together here, including possibly the next lesson series, which should be 400, which should be interesting to a lot of you. So anyway, continue your works, and we see a lot of progress each eye that opens, which means each mind that receives that light. This right here, question number 6, as you can see the title, are you saying that Sumerians built ci-KUMA? And I bring this up because this is not a new argument. This is not even a new topic. However, it's something that it's kind of like a thorn in the side. It's just aggravating to continue to hear these types of nonsensical arguments and points. The late, great Sheikh Anta Diop, and I advise anyone to please go read this book, African Origin of Civilization, if you have not read it yet. He presents an excellent argument in his book about ci-KUMA supposedly being established by so-called Asiatics from the East. And he's specifically referring to Sumerians, Mesopotamians, same difference. So anyway, I just want to post this for those who support this argument. And I just want to get your views and trying to see exactly where you come from with it, because, I mean, when you think about it logically, it couldn't make much sense for the Sumerians to have built ci-KUMA, or so-called Sumerians, as you say. And what really brought this to mind is that I was listening to a brother in the Moorish sciences, and he was speaking about how the biblical characters are supposedly talking about the tribe of Israel, which was supposed to be the Sumerians and things like that. I think I got it correct on that. Anyway, and he was showing how the characters were supposed to have come down the Tigris, Euphrates, come into ci-KUMA, which is what you now call Egypt, unfortunately, but come down into ci-KUMA and then established it and established Meroe and then established, Ethiopia, however it went. He was showing how basically the 12 tribes of Israel were Sumerians and all of this and that. That's all fine and dandy. But once again, it is a ploy to take the accomplishments of one of our greatest civilizations out of the hands of our people. And I say that because it is something that continues. And this protocol needs to be ended. And we've had greats that tried, but they haven't quite ended it because obviously the argument is still existing. So anyway, let's get on to the question. I actually have about 3 questions in this one. So, respond to each and all. 1, 2, it doesn't make a difference, but I really want to know these things. Now, the questions are, if the so-called Sumerians were so far more advanced and antique than Bakuma, which are the ancient Egyptians, as you call it, then number 1, where is the city? And please present me with a little more tangible evidence than ziggurats and the so-called cuneiform writing and the fictitious Tower of Babel. I guess it's in the same area. And if you want to know why I say the Tower of Babel being fictitious, I send you to my lesson 203 and understand exactly why I say that. So check out that lesson if you want to say that the Tower of Babel actually existed. Please look at that. Anyway, second question. Speaking of the so-called cuneiform, why is that writing system so primitive? I mean, we're talking about a so-called advanced civilization that's supposed to have given everything, technology and bathroom sewage systems and things like this to the world. But why are their letters and characters so primitive? I mean, really, are we really comparing dots and arrows to ci-KUMA and Madua and Chora, which you call Medu Neter? All right, think on that for a moment. Really think on that. And number 3, and probably it should be the most obvious, even the so-called Egyptologists, whether we talking about the European, Champollion, Wallace Budge, or we can be talking about the Arabic, Zahi Hawass, and all of them, doesn't make a difference. They've even gone into the temples and tombs of ci-KUMA. So with that one, I ask, where are the tombs in the so-called Sumer? I mean, if they established ci-KUMA, wouldn't it be logical that they would have something similar to the tombs that you see in the land? And I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But I haven't seen any temples and tombs that resemble Imaru and ci-KUMA in any land of Iraq or supposed to be Mesopotamia, Samaria, Syria, wherever this land is supposed to be. I haven't seen the Imaru in those lands that I've seen in ci-KUMA. However, I have seen those types of temples in what you call Nubia and in other parts of the Nile Valley, built by the Nile Valley civilization. So, like I said, I'm just using logic. I mean, seriously, give me an idea of what would remotely indicate why Bakuma built the tombs and temples that they erected and still are erected. Where is that type of indication in the so-called Sumer? And now I know this argument comes up a lot, and I want to refute this argument before it even becomes an argument again. Don't give me the excuse about climate and foreign invaders destroying the lands and the buildings and everything, because 2 reasons. Number 1, the Dravidian temples, known also in ancient times as the Ethiopian temples to the Greeks, these temples of Mohenjo-Daro, Chunhudaro, or Chanhudaro, if I'm pronouncing correctly, and Harappa, all of these cities and temples that are there, every last one of them have artifacts that are found older than anything in the so-called Sumer. So the same climate conditions, or even worse, you know, they might have even had more turbulent conditions in India. And another example would be MKuu-RA. It still stands strong today. So where are my so-called Sumerian temples? You know? So anyway, and then like I said, when we talk about foreign invaders, I mean, I don't even have to really go too far into that, because there has been no land, period, that has been more ravaged and invaded than ci-KUMA. Not one. So like I said, there is nothing further that needs to be said on that one. Now, I want to clear something up before you get me too confused and mistaken on what I'm saying here and missing my point. I know that the so-called South Europe, the Spains and the Greeks and all of that, and what you now so-called the Middle East, I know that there was nothing more than North Africa and Northeast Africa. And as a matter of fact, it was, you know, the northern eastern part of ci-KUMA. All of what you call the Middle East was part of ci-KUMA. Okay? Afa-Ra-Kaa, more properly pronounced, extended all the way to India, Sumatra, all of those areas. Okay, and there's evidence that shows that, of course. However, you know, Eurocentric mapping has many of you believing that this quote-unquote Egypt place is that little quadrilateral in North Afa-Ra-Kaa, and which is a flat-out lie. Now, by me saying this, that, you know, I'm saying that I already know that the people that are so-called Sumerians were black people, whether you want to translate it as black heads or whatever it is. I know they were black people, and they were black people because they were Afa-Ra-Kaa-tu. All right. Now, as a matter of fact, if you really want to get into details, the entire population from West Afa-Ra-Kaa all the way to, as I said, Sumatra and even to East China, they were all known as Ethiopians. That whole belt of people, the Greeks call them Ethiopians. Or if not Ethiopians, since that's a Greek word, they were basically called black people in whichever language you want to speak on it. So when we speak about this whole Samaria, so-called Samaria versus ci-KUMA, yes, we really are debating a black nation versus a black nation. You know, the black Sumer, so-called Sumer, against the black ci-KUMA. But that's not the question, nor is it the issue at hand. The reason why I pose this argument of the Sumerian myth, that's exactly what it is, the Sumerian myth, is because it's nothing more than Euro historiography attempting, as usual, to take all, and I do mean capital ALL, all, great and unfathomable accomplishments out of the hands of the Nile Valley and still attribute it to some other part or region of the world. So the issue that I'm having and the issue that's at hand is that the civilization did not come from the north to the south to ci-KUMA. That's part of the whole whitewashing of history. So therefore, the idea of a Sumerian's quote unquote origin of civilization, it just merely feels better to them saying it on their tongues, and it fits their protocols better than rightfully saying Nile Valley civilization. Or as Bakuma would call it, the ancient Egyptians would call it, Pawatu Itoraiwa Nyewe, which means the people from the place of the river and the waters that gives us food, our nation. Because obviously they knew where their Aloha Yamu and Nunchora Ote came from, which was Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Because as the late great Dr. Ivan Van Sertima said, wherever there's a great accomplishment in Afa-Ra-Kaa, it could not have been done by Afa-Ra-Kaa-tu, or as he said, Africans. Hamites brought it in. The Asiatics brought it in. Caucasoids brought it in. We are the dumb, slow ones of the world. And so it's our duty to correct this impression. And so, as I said before, and as I always say, all of my fellow soldiers on this mission, my fellow scholars, when I say soldiers, I mean scholars. When I say scholars, I mean soldiers, because we are fighting a battle for the minds. Continue your works. I want to hear what people have to say about the so-called Sumerian myth, because Zachariah Sitchin and some more people have this world going into a frenzy about this mythological and extraterrestrial type of origin that's, like I said, completely nonsensical. All right. I appreciate your time. Look forward to listening to your views and seeing your responses, seeing where you come from. Present evidence. You know, I want evidence. If you have something I haven't run across, I don't know everything. I'm learning every minute of every day. If you have something that I don't know about, bring it to the table. You know, each one educate one. That's not to say each one teach one. Each one educate one. So with that said, MKuu-RA.